So I like to start with this quote that design is intelligence made visible. Now this quote by Alina Wheeler perfectly captures the two most significant qualities of a good designer: intelligence and vision. And who better to learn these tenets from than someone who designs for a living? A developer who turned designer who likes to build digital products. Mayank is the founder of Whiteboard.fm, a product and design interview series on YouTube, exploring the stories, processes, and projects of interesting and upcoming folks, and hosts amazing people on his hashtag 10K Designers podcast. He currently works as a designer at Cred and is simultaneously helping build 10K Designers, the design school of the future. Today he'll be talking about how to become a UI UX designer and the opportunities you'll be looking forward to as a designer after graduation. So please give a warm welcome to Mayank.
Hey, thanks for the introduction, Harsh. Yeah, I think design is a lot of things, not just intelligence and creativity, but it's a amalgamation of a lot of things, which I'm pretty sure those who get started in design, once they get started, they realize that, hey, the pictures, like there's a really big picture and it's not, and like maybe we're just seeing through a really small keyhole, right? So awesome. Hey, folks, how are you guys? My name is Mayank. And unfortunately, I cannot see people's faces through Meet, but I would love to see your participation through the chat, through the live chat. So would love it if everyone who's watching can drop some emojis and just show how excited you guys are before I start presenting my deck and what I'm going to speak about today. Cool, awesome. I can't see any emojis though. I want you guys to put emojis on your chat. I want you guys to say how excited you are, and then let's get started. Cool. I'll present my screen. Hey everyone, great to be here. Super excited to share about what I'm going to talk about next. And that is, by the way, I'm Mayank. I'm the founder of Whiteboard.fm. I design at Cred. And I'm also helping a friend of mine, Abhinav, create 10K Designers. That is the design school of the future, where we teach about design and product to all the aspirants who are out there and who want to learn about UI UX design. You can reach out to me on Instagram and Twitter through my handle, MayankK98. And also you can go to whiteboard.fm, the website, if you want to watch any of the interviews and clips that are there. So what I'm going to talk about are 5 steps to get your first job in UI UX design and product management. Step 1 is to choose your opportunities. Now, a lot of folks in college, they sit for their placements, they sit for companies, they sit hoping that, hey man, we'll get placed and hopefully we'll get a job, right? But even when you're doing that, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have certain criteria in mind that this is the place that I want to apply at, this is the place I don't want to apply. Now, whether you're applying through your campus or through off campus, the best way, I feel, the way you can start off is by choosing your opportunities, right? Choosing your opportunities, and when you're choosing them, you should have a personal preference, which I believe should be based on 3 factors. That is the company that you want to work at, the team that you want to work with, and the projects that you want to work on. And based on these factors, you should be able to select what opportunities are you going for, right? You can have all these criteria in mind. It's not that you have to choose one over the other, but I would prefer amongst these 3 choices as well, having an option that what do you prefer more, whether you choose the company over the team, the brand value over the team value, or whether you choose the projects over the company's brand as well. Like you might work on a really exciting project in a startup versus working at a very easy and beginner level project, but in a really big MNC, right? What do you want? What are your preferences? And why these preferences come in handy? It's simply because that when you have an order of preference, it helps you better in filtering and choosing which opportunity you want to go for when you have multiple of them in your hand, when you have the possibility of being a part of like different companies, and your application has been selected by different companies, and then the ball's in your court in the sense that where do you want to go, right? Another thing in terms of selecting your ideal project is that you should retrospect that once you are at that company, where do you see yourself going? Project your future growth. Imagine yourself in that situation. It's not exactly how it will be, but it will definitely help you understand yourself better and where do you see yourself, because life doesn't end there. You're going to go at a either you'll work there till you reach at a senior position, or you leave after a while, or you leave once you reach a senior position, or you'll stay there for the longer run. But all these choices you'll be able to make, of course, with time while you're working, but also before joining. If you can get a better idea by like just projecting yourself, that's very helpful. Why I'm raising these points is also because you are making a long-term investment of your time when you're selecting which opportunity you want to go for, where you want to apply, and you are making a long-term time-driven investment, and thinking it through will benefit you in the longer run. So this is one of the main lines that I wanted to share or tell you guys, is that long-term growth is driven by intrinsic motivation and less by external rewards. Basically, you might be at the biggest company, you might be paying, you might be getting the highest salary, but your actual motivation is intrinsic motivation, the motivation that you get when you complete a run or when you feel that you've gotten fitter, right? That kind of motivation, that self motivation that comes, which is irrespective of any materialistic reward that's out there. Your long term growth is driven by that and not by rewards. So now we move to step 2. Step 2 is understanding the power of research. Now, by research, for all the engineering aspirants, which I think majority of the students here are engineering students, a lot of you guys might think research as research papers, right? But no, I'm not referring to research as research papers or getting things published. What I simply mean is Googling stuff, getting to know the breadth and the details of where you're applying, how the people in the team are, how do they function, and so on and so forth, right? Because this is the most important step in my opinion, because this will help you give a much realistic perspective, right? And it will tell you how your life and career will be if you end up living that opportunity. I also feel that researching about the opportunity will prove to be a game changer, because you understand the market in which it exists, right? For example, if you want to work at a company like Cred, you need to know how fintech works, how bill payments work, of sorts, not exactly in detail, but you need to know, have an idea about that, right? Because then only you'll be able to think and solve problems in that same domain. You need to understand what the market is like in terms of where you're applying. If you're applying for a food delivery company, you need to understand how that works. How do product and design functionalities work in that space, right? And all this happens when you're simply Googling and interacting with people and doing your research. This brings me to my next quote, that is, the right information at the right time is deadlier than any weapon, which is very true, because this helps you be an opportunistic person, right? If you have the right information, and then you will be an opportunist by seeing that, hey, now this is the time I should use all this information that I have to my advantage, right? So right information at the right time is deadlier than any weapon, which is something which I feel is very true, which is why I keep telling people that keep doing your research, getting to know, stay up to date with what's going on around the world. Even if you get your first job or wherever you are, if you're going or aiming for something higher or something else, you should do your research beforehand so that you can use it to your advantage, right? You should gather the information, get clarity, and that way you'll definitely stay ahead of the pack, right? So the next point is creating proof of work, right? The next step, that is the third step, is creating proof of work. Now, based on your research, and the first step was making your choices, right? Based on, first you made your preferences, then you did your research. After these two things, now that you have an understanding of where you want to work, what the market space for that place is like, how the team members are like, what projects have they done, you need to start creating your proof of work. Why? To show someone that you're eligible, that you're capable of being a part of their team and adding value to that team or to that product or to that project or to that company, right? And the way this happens is very simply, a very straightforward way is to create proof of work. Now, creating proof of work is also you have to be very strategic about it, right? Because based on that, you will be selected, your domain knowledge and your goals will be decided. Like, people will know that what does this person intend to do in the company, or whether they are a culture fit as well. Culture fit is a big deal. So Yeah, and your proof of work can be a lot of things, right? It can be in the form of your personal projects, it can be in the form of your freelance work, it can also be in the form of your own portfolio. Now, I always consider a portfolio as an accumulation of all your proof of works. When your proof of work is at 100 different places, if it's at Dribbble, if it's on LinkedIn, if it's on Instagram as a separate page, if it's somebody else's website that you created, you need to collate all of that, right? You cannot just put it in a, you can put it in a PDF, but a better, more elegant way is to put it in a portfolio website, since it's accessible. You don't have to send a document to everyone. You just have to send one URL, right? And basically that's an accumulation of all your work. So getting back to creating proof of work, what kinds of proof of works are there? They are your freelance projects, they are your personal projects, and you can accumulate them through your portfolio. Another big suggestion is that please don't create random project. When you know, after you've done all your research, after selecting your opportunities, the proof of work that you create should demonstrate three things according to me. That should be: one, your technical skills; second, your research on the product and the company, right? Which is why you've created a project, for example, in the food delivery space or in an edtech space, if you're wanting to work in an edtech company, right? And your understanding of the market, not just the project, not just the company, but how the company works or how the project is making a difference or making an impact in the market overall, right? Once you know that, you have an even better understanding of what other competitors are doing as well, what other similar products are doing, or what other products are doing from which we could take inspiration from. All these factors come in to place when you've come till step 3, and this helps you in creating your proof of work as well. Another thing which comes in handy when you're creating proof of work is remembering this concept. That is the next slide for this. That is depth and breadth. Now, when you're creating projects similar to those being done by your goal company, it will reflect on your effort in having done research and your current knowledge, right? So your proof of work should also contain your breadth and depth. It should, and I'll explain how this works. So basically, your breadth are the number of aspects that are covered. For example, design, market understanding, problem solving, and so on and so forth. Now in design also, there's so many other topics or aspects that are there, right? Like typography, padding, spacings, colors, and so on and so forth. UI, user experience thinking. And the depth is basically the understanding that you have for each of those aspects. So horizontally covers your breadth, where it consists of the number of aspects, and depth basically consists of the depth at which, or the level of expertise you have in each domain, right? In each discipline, in each aspect. So you have multiple T shapes created, and your goal is to have a proper T shape. You don't want to have very less breadth and a lot of depth, and you don't want to have a lot of depth and a very less depth and a lot of breadth, right? Your T shape should be maintained. And which is why we keep saying that, a lot of us say in the market as well, that ideally you would want to be at a place where you're a jack of all and master of some. You cannot be a jack of all completely, and you can't be a master of one at all, because there's so many things going on. You'll end up being obsolete. So the ideal situation to be in when you're starting off and in the future as well is to be a jack of all and a master of some. Cool. So does anyone have any questions, by the way? Or you can feel free to drop your questions in the questions tab. And also in the live chat, feel free to just express how you're feeling, or whether you're if this is beneficial to you as well, right? So I'll move to the next slide, and at the next step as well, that is reaching out. So when you're reaching out, I'll tell you why reaching out is a step, right? Because well-known startups, agencies, and companies do not actively look for participants, right? Even though they have open positions at times. For example, like there are startups who are, and the reason why they do this is simply because they want a already filtered set of really good candidates. So they ask their employees to refer someone if they feel they know that person will add value to the company, or people who know that this is happening, they will go out of their own way and then reach out. I applied through off campus. That's how I got started in Cred. Cred didn't come to my campus. I reached out. I did cold outreach, and I reached out to the head of design when I was applying when I was wanting to intern at Cred. I did that. So this is why reaching out is very important. No one's going to be looking out for you and be like, man, I really think I want this guy because he's really good. There are a lot of designers who are good, a lot of people who are good in product as well, right? So the first step that you need to make in term is that you have to reach out. After you're done with your first 3 steps, you have to reach out to folks in order to get the opportunities that you're aiming for. Another thing is that the how to reach out is through 3 things, I think. So far, at least, I've experienced 3 things. One is through cold emails or through cold outreach. Not keeping it very straight to the point, not beating around the bush, saying that, hey, this is, I'm applying for a product design or a UI UX design or a product management internship, and this is my proof of work. And this is why I feel how I can add value to your team. There's no hi, hello, really excited or really grateful for applying to you, nothing of that sort. Everything is very direct, straightforward, and straight to the point. Because at an average, I feel every recruiter or someone who's looking for someone to hire has so many applicants. They have around 30 seconds to check, right? If they find this person to be a fit in their team. And in 30 seconds, you have to grab that person's attention. So one of them is doing it through cold emails or cold outreach. Second is DMing them on or sending them messages on social media. Social media can be Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Either of them. Instagram works. People do message on Instagram. Twitter also works. People do message. They're going out of their way. They're finding unique ways of reaching out to folks so that they are noticed, because there are hundreds and thousands of applications that are received by companies. Trust me. Folks nowadays have started doing new things as well, new ways of doing outreach and reaching out to people. That is, one, they've started to create videos, right? They've started to create Loom videos and as a pitch to seniors, and they've just sent this one link where they've given a walkthrough of their portfolio and all their projects, explaining how they could be a valuable asset to the team and why they should be hired or why they should be given an internship opportunity, right? So these are different ways, and you can still find more ways and explore and get yourself noticed and shoot your shot. Basically, shoot your shot, right? Be unique and stick to the point is something I mentioned. And another thing I wanted to mention which is something which is nuanced and people don't realize this, but first impressions are important, and they don't start on your first day of work. They start when you've reached out to them for the first time. That's when your first impression starts. So if you want to set a good impression, reach out to them in a really good way, so that the next time when they see you on your first day of your internship or the first day of your job, they remember you by the way you reached out to them, which was unique. And that's what your first impression is set by, not by of how you are on the first day of your job, but the first time you've interacted with them technically is when you've done your outreach with them, when you've reached out to them for the first time. So do that really well. We come to the last step, that is putting yourself out there, right? Putting yourself out there. By that, I mean that not just reaching out to folks who are interested or whom you want to go reach out to for the opportunity that you've been thinking and aiming for, but also just creating your own personal brand. Now, I wouldn't call it personal brand exactly here, which is why I didn't write step 5 as creating your personal brand. I put it as putting yourself out there. It's because you should update yourself and others around you who are like-minded people, what you are up to, what you're doing. Because if you lose track of that, you will it'll take time in getting back to it. It's same as doing outreach and research at the same time, right? So putting yourself out there helps a lot, because that way people are more updated and aware of your existence, that hey, this person exists. And also you have a sense of giving back to yourself, that hey, I've put this on social media, I'm working on this, so that I'm working on this project. I need to keep up to my word. I need to actually make sure that this happens, right? Learning and updating people about what you're learning helps build a bigger network of like-minded folks. They notice you, they reach out to you. You'll also end up finding more other similar like-minded people, and you will be able to reach out to them. And that way you will be able to create your own form of network, which people keep saying, right? Hey, I don't really have a network. I don't know how I'll get this opportunity. This is how you'll get your opportunity, by creating your own network, by putting yourself out there that, hey, I'm working, or hey, I need help. Like, can someone like help me out? Is someone working on similar things? I would love to have a chat with you, right? Know the difference between 2 things, actual value and perceived value. These are 2 things you should know the difference between. The goal is to match your perceived value to your actual value, right? Some people always, like, this is where imposter syndrome also comes in place, where you feel that you're not that valued or you're not good enough. But then once you realize that, hey, people are perceiving you at a different value, you feel much better, right? But that means you're already there and you were feeling lesser. Your actual goal should be to meet your to make your perceived value meet your actual value. Is that your actual value, you know, it's so high, but people are not perceiving it as high as it really is. So the goal is to make that match, right? And another thing which I really appreciate about when I thought of this step is the next line, is that help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it, right? Basically, what I'm trying to tell is that ask for help from your peers. There is no shame in that, right? And also help others the way you wanted to be helped, right? A series of trusted transactions can evolve into relationships that will go a long way. Trust me, this line is will also be more comfortable in asking you for help. And you should always help people the way you would want to be helped. And it goes a long way. Trust me, it genuinely goes a long way. Understand the power of long term. Another quote, another line which I really wanted to kind of introduce you guys to, if you haven't, is that understand the power of anomalous power of long term slow compounding. You need to understand how compounding works financially, personally, career wise. If you keep helping people and people keep helping you have no idea how much slow but long term compounding you're doing, because you're learning multiple skills, you're learning new things from different people. People know that you're a good person, you're able to help. They'll That culture fit will come into place. They'll be like, hey man, we are looking for someone, this person does similar work and he's a really good person, since he's got a really good network and community, and a lot of people know him because of the value that he's providing to them, as well as the value that he himself has as a person. His perceived value and actual value are really high, right? So that's what the goal is. Just to reiterate on the 5 steps that I mentioned. One is that choosing your opportunity. Second is understanding the power of research. Third is creating proof of work. Fourth is reaching out. And fifth is putting yourself out there, right? So that brings me to the end of my deck of sorts that I had prepared to share 5 simple steps that if anyone does and follows really well, they can actually get their first job in UI UX design or product management in the company of their choice, in the startup of their choice, in the team of their choice, in the project that they want to work on, if they're just consistent with this. So yeah, my mission statement with doing this talk as well is to empower the next generation of self-taught designers in India and in the world. Thanks for listening, guys. I can see a lot of emojis, and finally people have started chatting and saying that good talk and of sorts, which gives me a lot of confidence and makes me feel very nice that I'm adding value and helping you guys, right? If there's anything you need to know from me, you can just DM me on Instagram at mayank98 or on Twitter. If you want to learn about design and get into a UI UX design course, I feel you can go to 10kdesigners.com. I'll just share my screen if this is possible. One second. Harsh, I'll just unshare at this and then I'll share this again. One second. Yep. So like I was saying, if you guys want to learn about design, you can just want to enroll yourself in a design bootcamp or in the design school, you can enroll to 10kdesigners.com. Currently, we are on cohort 3, where we have a lot of students who we are training. The next cohort applications will open in June, right? And I won't be able to share the deck that I've created for this presentation. But if you guys want to see, if you guys want access to the 5 steps that I mentioned to you guys and refer to it again, you can just go to whiteboard.fm. It's the website of the podcast that Abhinav and I run. And if you scroll down, you'll get a pop-up. And all you have to do is enter your email ID and get this PDF with the email that you receive in your inbox. So yeah. Cool, folks. So this was my talk. Hey, anytime, Harsh. Let's go to questions. If anyone has any questions, I would love to hear it from them. And yeah.
There's a question Shaurya has asked. How do you deal with the frustration that arises when you when you are unable to overcome an obstacle?
Is it if possible to hear, listen to Shaurya?
Shaurya just
Hey, Shaurya.
he just came on stage but exited.
Okay, sure. So I'll answer the question though. How do you deal with frustration that arises when you're unable to overcome an obstacle? It's very easy. I try not to get frustrated. And how do I try not to get frustrated is by accepting that, hey, I'm not able to solve this. I need to take a break. Either I'll take a break for a while and then get back to the same problem, or I will actually do that. I'll take a break and get back to the same problem. I'll try different ways. I'll look for inspiration. I'll talk to other people around me. I have teammates, right? And I know other like-minded people who are in the same space. So if I'm working on something within the company, I will ask my teammates that, hey, can you help me out? What do you think? What is your approach? What do you have in mind? Right? And if I'm working on a freelance project, either I'll ask my teammates again, or I'll ask other people who I know in the design community or the product community whom I know and I've been interacting with since a long time, right? Because you're not alone in the game, is what you need to realize. When you're in a company, it's a team sport. You are surrounded by your team members. You help them, they help you. That's how the team works. You're supposed to have each other's back, right? And when you're by yourself, which is why you have to put yourself out there to connect with people, interact with people, join communities. There are a lot of Discord design communities that are out there and on different platforms, right? Join them and don't just take help, give help as well. Because after a point, people do notice when you're just taking help and not really helping other people, and your requests don't get considered or don't get taken seriously. So give value to get value. I think everyone's really happy with the session. And if anyone has any questions they want to ask after this, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or Twitter. See you guys.
Great session, and thank you for joining in, man.
Hey, pleasure. See you, man.